How generational is Cooper Flagg? Just what could the Jazz be getting?
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Jazz. I'm Leif Thulin. I'm excited to be with you guys, filling in for David Locke. This is the last show for me in this six podcast stretch, but I'm always happy to be talking to you guys. As you guys may know by now, I'm a lifelong Jazz fan. As a credentialed NBA draft analyst for Locked On NBA Big Board, attendee of the 2023 and 2024 NBA Combine, Jazz broadcast assistant, statistician, and lover of college hoops. So don't expect all the geeky numbers of usual to be gone that you're accustomed to with David, but I'll bring a unique perspective as a diehard college hoops fan, NBA draft analyst, and a Jazz employee to make you as knowledgeable about the Jazz and the NBA draft that could help your Utah Jazz as possible. Also, thank you guys for making Locked On Jazz your first listen each and every day. And remember, Locked On Jazz is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked On Jazz, where the best way to help us grow is comment something below. And today's question is, what do you see as Cooper Flagg's ceiling? How many All-Stars? How many All-NBAs? What is the absolute ceiling for Cooper Flagg? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel offers new customers $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Your favorite podcast, by the way, now has a newsletter introducing Locked On Jazz Daily Newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up free right now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Jazz newsletter. And I get it every day. I take a gander at that, and it helps me prepare my stats sometimes. Today, I'll break down on the show. The first segment, I'll break down Cooper Flagg and answer how rare of a prospect he really is and what makes him special, especially in what's considered to be a very good class. Why is he the unanimous number one? In the second segment, I'll name some other players for you guys to keep an eye on that I like in this draft that I've yet to talk to you guys about. So kind of pick 6 through 8 should the Jazz end up there. I know that's not what we want, but it is a possibility. And I'll tell you all about them heading into Madness, as well as some picks that maybe the Jazz could get with the Timberwolves pick. And then in the final segment, I'll break down the recent performances of Egor Demin, who I watched live in Provo last night against the Kansas Jayhawks, and I've studied recently, as well as tell you about the newest Jazz man, Jaden Springer, who, as I'm recording this, was recently signed by the Jazz. Let's dive right in. First and foremost, Cooper Flagg's 18 years old. He is young. Everyone was talking about how he was only 17, what he was doing. Well, now he's 18, and it's out the window. But I want to reiterate, he's still very young. And in my opinion, he's the best player in the country. He may not win the National Player of the Year. I might go to Janai Broome of Auburn. But Cooper Flagg won the head-to-head matchup between those two players. And for my money, is the most impactful player on a given night of anyone in the country. For context only AD, Anthony Davis, Zion Williamson, and Kevin Durant have won the Player of the Year as freshmen. Anthony Davis, Zion Williamson, and Kevin Durant. Pretty good track record. So he is the real deal. Whether he wins it or not, he would be joining quite some history if he did win. Now, for the statistics, just the raw numbers, 20 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 49% from the field, 37% from 3, 1.2 blocks, 1.6 steals in 32 minutes per game. That's really, really good. And the crazy part is he was knocked coming into this year for his lack of natural, innate scoring ability. He had to work extra hard to have it and wasn't uberly gifted and built with a bag, a wiggle and score. His jump shot had a little bit of a hitch in it. All those things were talked about as to why, even though he was considered a very, very good prospect, as to why he was not in the elite echelon of tier 1, cannot miss, perhaps to some. And he's dispelled all those notions, and now everyone is all in on Cooper Flagg. He's dispelled those notions because his sheer productivity is alarming and honestly could be putting up far bigger numbers if he didn't care so much about winning, and the unselfishness that he exudes you can see it on a court. And it's not been spoken about enough because, when Duke's dominating, they pull him. So his numbers could be even better, but the sheer numbers are still staggering. On a night-to-night, his numbers are more eye-popping than that of Janai Broome's, who is a senior, a fifth-year senior. And he's been really, really good in college basketball standards as well. So the other knock for nitpickers was he just doesn't shoot it that well. And the question was, can his slightly strange form in which it's high over his head, elbows may not be textbook. Can it work? Well, he's shooting over 80% from the free throw line and shooting over 36% from three. It's pretty hard to do, especially with the shot diet he's getting, because he's isolating and creating shots off the dribble, and his numbers there are really good. Now, let's talk about the pros and the positives aside from the numbers, because we love numbers. He's absolutely tenacious and confident, has unabashed, unwavering confidence at 18 years old. I mentioned in a previous episode, the Everydayers, this may sound familiar, Gordy Chiesa, who I referenced, coached the Jazz under Jerry Sloan. He compared him to Andre Karolinko defensively. Andre Karolinko was a monster defensively. Cooper Flagg might be more versatile, and this is coming from a guy who idolized AK-47 growing up. Flagg, my friend put it well once talking about Flagg. He's a diehard Duke fan and has been watching Duke forever. Doesn't miss a game. Flagg, he said, he looks like he's been coached by Greg Popovich since the age of 9. My friend said this facetiously, trying to make me laugh. And then he said, you know what, the crazy thing, I was trying to make you laugh, but I meant it in sincerity. And I watched the next couple of Duke games, and every time Flagg had to make a decision, he made the right decision. Whether it's him scoring, whether it's him passing the corner, hitting the roll man, defensively, making the right defensive rotation, he does it instinctually, and he gets better. He realizes mistakes and gets better and doesn't make them again. We're going to have more on that in a moment. By the way, to reiterate the rarefied air he's reached already, I was going through some of my notes. Cooper Flagg, who's not supposed to be a very good scorer, I was told, he set a freshman record for points in the ACC. He scored 40 for the first time at Duke since 2006, and that's not just freshman, when J.J. Redick did it. And I was told he's not a great scorer. J.J. Redick's one of the best college basketball players of the past 20 years. Flagg's final stat line, 42 points, 6 boards, 7 assists on 11 of 14 shooting. Like sheer efficiency, and contributed elsewhere in the stat sheet. It's the best freshman game in years. And that's wonderful. And yet he's often been critiqued of limited upside as compared to that of Ace Bailey, who, I've said even that if Ace Bailey hits his 1,000th percentile outcome, that he could be a Tracy McGrady, and Cooper Flagg is more of the Scottie Pippen ilk. Well, I think Scottie Pippen, as great as he is, was not as natural of a scorer as Cooper Flagg is. And that leads me to the point I brought up about how he processes things. You heard that about Cooper Flagg, and he wasn't that gifted of a scorer. He wasn't unbelievably talented as a shooter like many of these guys are, and it's just, repetitions and getting stronger. He had the athleticism, he had the determination, but the thing that everyone talked about was the sheer competitiveness. Well, I heard a clip about Brian Scalabrine, the white Mamba. He, you're going to see him, talked about and made fun of. And, there's always the clip of him saying, I'm closer to LeBron than you are to me. And boy, is he right, by the way. Like, I recently played in a basketball run with a G Leaguer, and it's not even remotely close. And Brian Scalabrine was at a higher level than that. Anyway, point I'm trying to make is Scalabrine talked about Cooper Flagg. And when he met Cooper Flagg, Flagg was 13 years old, and he wowed him. And he kind of thought, man, I can't believe this guy's all that great because he's from Maine. I've never heard of him. And he just went about his business, dunked at 13, defended, did the drills, didn't say a word. And Scalabrine said he immediately texted Team USA. Who knows how true that is? That was ages ago. Many of you guys have already seen this. But recently I saw a very new clip about Scalabrine talking about what makes good players really good and what makes really good players great. And it's how smart they are. And he said many very good players work for 6 months to incorporate something new concepts, new moves, schemes, incorporating defensive rotations, how to deal with those defensive rotations when you're on offense, and all of that. And Cooper, whom he compared to a supercomputer, he processes it and has the new stuff mastered not the next day. Not only just answering the questions of the test saying this is what I would do, but he incorporates it to the basketball game the very next day after thinking about it and practicing it, and he just tenaciously approaches his work. Scalabrine described him as a computer that processes the thing and then is able to apply it within a 5-minute turnaround. And very few players, even pros that he's been around, have been able to do so. And he said the ones that he would say categorize as great are the only ones who've been able to do that. And that really struck me. And as I was prepping for this, that's what I saw. And it has me even more positive about what Cooper Flagg could be. That had me thrilled. To sum it up on how great I think Cooper is, I think you're looking at the best prospect, not including Victor Wembanyama, since Anthony Davis. That's a long time. That's 13 years. And I think he's better than every other prospect. And I recently told you that the number one pick gets a 63% chance of being an all-star. And 4 of the last 5 number one picks have been all-stars rather easily. And the last one is Rhys-Sachet, and I don't have that high of a hope. I was lower on him than most. But, he's a rookie. So him not being an all-star is not a negative thing. The last 4 before that, excellent basketball players. All of them potentially franchise-building players. And I think he's better than them. I also, for what it's worth, you can say, oh, you're really young, like maybe you didn't know enough, and whatever. You can say what you'd like on that. But Anthony Davis, I believed in more than Zion, and that could be beginner's luck. But I've now evaluated the last few years and taken a ton of time like studying this stuff, and I have more faith in Cooper than I had in anyone since then, including other than Wembanyama since 2019. And 2019, Zion had all this hoopla that is way exceeding what Cooper's generated. But I think Cooper is better, and he's elevating his team more. And here's the crazy thing is you look back to Anthony Davis, who won a national championship, won National Player of the Year in college. But knowing what we know now about Anthony Davis, he's great. He's been really good. He's got 4 first-team All-Pros, a lot of defensive achievements, has won a championship. But he's never been that dude on a winning team. Like, that was still LeBron James's team that won it. And Anthony Davis didn't win outside of one playoff series against Portland as the guy with the Hornets. Or excuse me, I guess it was the Hornets at that point. Or no, it was the Pelicans. Sorry, I'm all over the place. But anyway, you get my point. He was with the Pelicans, and he was drafted to them, and they didn't go very far. I think Cooper Flagg has the ability to propitiate a franchise and make them more impressive as a team, more able to compete in the playoffs because he's in a more valuable position. He can play 3 through 5, honestly, but I think he can play the 3 and the 4, fit the ilk of big wings that can take over the game. And I think 4 or 5 years from now, if you look at him at the end of his rookie contract, he could be a 24 points, 7-8 rebounds, 4 assists, great defense, and your team's competing. And that means he's really, really good. He's in rarefied air. So coming up next, we're going to talk about some more prospects who could be within the Jazz's range. Maybe we hope we're not. If we're getting Cooper Flagg, that's what we want. That's really what we want. But maybe we end up with guys that are not named Cooper Flagg. So I'll try to educate you about those guys. But first, a word from FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no one better to place it and no place better to place it than on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even when you miss the opening tip-off, you want to place a bet on maybe the fourth quarter comeback for your favorite team, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. That's quite a nice thing to have. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That seems pretty doable. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back. Leif Thulin with you here on Locked On Jazz. We've talked about guys who will fall in line after Flagg in previous days, and I told you more about VJ Edgecombe after a really good performance against Arizona in depth yesterday. And last week we talked about Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, and that was the first intro to him, Trey Johnson and Kasparas Jakučionis, who are likely 1 through 6 in some capacity. And sure, there could be changes. But what if the Jazz don't draft one of those guys and are in the top 6? Who would they be? Or maybe if the Jazz get unlucky, and right now we're in 3rd and we're only a half game out of 4th in the tanking race, you find yourself with possibilities of falling 4. So 3 plus 4 gets you to 7. 4 plus 4 gets you to 8. So who are the guys that could be in that realm for the Jazz? And I'll try to familiarize you with names for that. And coincidentally, 2 of the guys that I like in this range, just as prospects, not necessarily fit dependent to the Jazz, also played with Cooper Flagg in high school. And there's another guy who could go in the lottery from that same high school. So let's start with Liam McNeeley, who I believe is the best, other than Cooper Flagg from Montverde, in this year's draft, which is a crazy sentence to say. So McNeely's recently been on a tear, and a comparison I'd use that Jazz fans would appreciate and be familiar with would be Bojan Bogdanovic. And I'd add that he has a little more ball handling and facilitating capacity than Bogey, and boy, did we love Bogey. So Liam McNeely's at UConn. He's a freshman. He's 6'8". He's averaging 15 points per game, 7 boards, shooting 37% from three on good volume. He shoots over 5 per game, so that's important. I really do believe in volume as the best indication of how well a guy shoots the ball. 86 from the free throw line. So by every metric, he shoots the ball well. He's got a big, sturdy body, and he's been asked to do far, far more than you'd think you would have to do at UConn after winning 2 national championships. He's had a gargantuan workload, particularly as injuries have hurt the Huskies and confidence has dissipated for many players. He's been in control. He's thrived, and he's raised his stock tremendously since returning from an ankle injury. His highlight of the season is he scored 38 following that ankle injury at Creighton, which is a place that is a house of horrors for UConn, and he scored 38 and had 10 boards. That joined Kevin Durant and Steph Curry as the only freshman with 30 and 10 ever. Yeah, pretty good company there too. So both the Montverde boys have done very well. In his last game, he also helped UConn pull a Houdini act in which they had no business beating Villanova. They were behind, they won, and he was the sole reason for it. And he didn't even shoot very well, but he was the best player on the floor, and his impact transcended just the shooting performance. So here's some pros and cons. McNeely's sturdy, he's strong. He's got big-time shooting ability, both off the curl and set shots. Easy release. He doesn't need a ton of touches to get points, but he is capable of creating. He's got good defensive instincts. I wouldn't say he's the most fleet-footed, but I like the way he is able to rebound and battle physically on the defensive end already in collegiate basketball, which is, yes, less athletic than the NBA, but they're playing 23-year-olds all the time, and he's 18. He's got decent foot speed. I wouldn't say that's his strength, like the strength, but I would definitely say it's not a weakness at the collegiate level at least. He's smart with the ball, doesn't turn it over too often, despite being asked to penetrate more than I think he probably thought he was supposed to. And he's not going to wow you with flashy plays, but he's got good feel for basketball, finds the right spots on the floor, gets to the free throw line, converts at the free throw line, finishes well, rebounds the ball, and is just active. I would take him as high as number 7, which might be higher than most and is definitely higher than where he is on draft boards right now. But I like him, and I confidently would take him over the likes of Con Knipple, who is often seen as the pick at number 7 for whomever is drafting there and all these picks. I think he's significantly better. He's bigger. He's better with the ball, and he's a better athlete. So maybe they're going to be compared to one another quite often, but I think McNeely's better, and I think most people have Con ahead right now, but McNeely's better to me. Now, the other Montverde grad that I think probably goes in the top 10 because he's been spectacular of late is Derik Queen. Derik Queen is not the prototypical rim-protecting big man, but boy, is he talented. I preface this by saying the Jazz may not be the most natural fit, but honestly, right now, who cares about fit? Because if you believe a guy's awesome, just take the guy you think's awesome. And here's what Derik Queen brings to the table. He's a 6'10", 245-pound guy from Maryland. He averages 16 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 55% from the field, 76% from the free throw line. His last 3 games, he's been sensational, has made Maryland a popular dark horse name to monitor entering late February and creeping towards March, which is a time I just love. But here's the analysis of Queen. He's got great footwork, great coordination, able to shoot the ball, not very well from 3, but his touch is real. He's a very adept slasher, which sounds strange for someone that big. He's able to attack moving, whether it's a flex screen or back cut or catches it near the wing. He's very coordinated and able to avoid help defenders and then finish. So he's a bigger, beefier post player with a very high skill level. He does not jump well. He's the type where you describe he can't jump over a phone book. And he's put in a ton of work on his upper body and honestly just his body in general. He's become thinner and he's more fluid than he once was at Montverde, where he was heavier and just dominating physically. He's got tremendous eye-hand coordination, catches everything, great footwork in the post, great touch around the rim. He can overpower defenders, and he's also got the touch where you can see the baby hook on display, and you can see some of that coordination. He plays with energy. He's well coached. He rebounds the ball well, uses his body to carve out space. And, yeah, he's maybe not the most switchable. He's not the most intimidating guy at the rim, but he's improved his foot speed, and he may not have the athletic juice that's prototypical for a 5-man, but his skill is abnormal in the same regard. He's not a floor spacer, but he's able to score the back to his basket and be an offensive hub. I really like Derik Queen, and I think he's becoming a more desirable mold as you see Şengün and Sabonis do what they do, and of course Jokic to the extreme. That the offensive hub of not very athletic big guys is becoming more and more popular because of how rare they are and how effective those guys that are rare are. Next up from the college ranks is a youngster by the name of Jeremiah Fears. Fears is 18. He reclassified much like Cooper Flagg, but however, unlike Flagg, his production has tailed off since entering conference play. Fears is at Oklahoma. He plays in the SEC, which is the best league in basketball right now. He's 6'4", although some question his height, about 180, 185 pounds. He scores 15 points per game, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 29 minutes per game, 44% from the field, 28 from 3, 85 from the line. So there's questioning how well he shoots at 28% from 3, but 85% from the free throw line. He had stellar performances against Arizona, who's likely a 3 seed. And we talked about their defensive aces the other day when talking about VJ Edgecombe playing them. He scored 26 against Arizona. And then against Michigan, who leads the Big Ten, he scored 30 on 75% shooting 8 of 12. And he also hit the game-winning 3 ball in that game. So he believes that he's that guy, and he's shown it. He moves really well, puts pressure on the rim, gets to the line frequently. He has some physical maturation to do. Like, he's not as physically well developed as Cooper Flagg is, but I love the way he plays. His confidence is unabashed. He believes in himself. He's fast. He's a good ball handler who can really penetrate, and he's good at drawing contact, which is a thing that I value in scoring. We talked about that with VJ Edgecombe. He's able to get to the free throw line and generate free shots, and he shoots 85% from the line. I like the feel and the tempo that Jeremiah Fears plays with. He's got a good change of pace, penetrates, and he's not the most athletic guy, but like I said, his change of pace is very good, and that's probably more important than just sheer speed. He's a capable three-point shooter, but like I said, the numbers aren't amazing, but I do think he shoulders a workload that is difficult to shoulder, particularly at 18 years old in the best league in basketball. So there are some people that say he needs to return to school and he's got to bulk up, and his stuff was a bit of a flash in the pan. I like the traits. I'm buying him. I would still put him in the top 10. I think he's a guy that no matter if he comes out this year or next, he's going to be well regarded, and it's someone to keep an eye on. Keep an eye on all these guys. And then speaking of talent, I would love to have the Jazz draft if available with Minnesota's pick. I really like Carter Bryant. I mentioned him briefly when he guarded VJ Edgecombe. He averages 6 points, 4 boards, 48% from the field, 36 from 3, 6'9", 225 pounds, and he moves like a deer. In the last couple of games, he's averaging 8 points, 8 rebounds in 24 minutes. So he's adding to his workload and thriving in the core of Big 12 play as Arizona's making their best run. He's just rare to me in the way that he moves. He's fleet of foot. He glides his feet. He slides his feet and glides on a basketball court. And his shooting stroke, 36% is pretty good, but I'd argue when you watch him shoot, it looks even better. And he's just a guy that you're not seeing with the ball in his hands because he plays on a veteran ball club with multiple players that are higher in the pecking order of need the ball in their hands. And he's just got natural fluidity, athleticism, and stuff that you can't teach is stuff he does easily. And then he fills a stat sheet. Like the last game, he had 8, 6, and 6 and rebounds and assists. He makes the right plays. He fits in. And I know you sometimes want people to stand out, but fitting in the 20s, if they're taking him around Minnesota's pick, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone before them because I think he's that talented. But Tankathon, which is a good thing to reference, has him at 34th. I would keep him. I would probably take him at 14. So there's some guys to tell you guys about. A quick disclaimer, though, I did not mention some European-born players who deserve recognition, but only spoke about the guys I've been studying of late, playing the collegiate game. Speaking of seeing players from Europe and recently, I went down to Provo and watched Egor Demin, and I'll give you my thoughts on that next. All righty, welcome back to Locked On Jazz. I'm Leif Thulin, and as I mentioned, as I was beginning this show, Jaden Springer joined the Utah Jazz, and this is happening right as I was preparing for the show, so I quickly have compiled this while doing the show for you. He's a free agent guard, Jaden Springer, who agreed to a 10-day contract with the Jazz. His agent, Chad Speck, told ESPN Springer played in 26 games for the Celtics this season. But Springer played at Tennessee, was selected 28th to Philly the year the Jazz drafted Jared Butler at 30. So he was definitely someone the Jazz knew about and maybe still have, maybe there are fans of him still within the front office. He's only 22. He has averages in his career of 2.7 points per game, 1.3 rebounds per game, and he just shoots 25% from three. There's the issue, right? Like therein lies the issue. He can really defend, but I see this as a buy low spot for a true top tier athlete. Like he's one of the very rare athletes, even within the NBA. And maybe he can hone in on his shooting and you become comfortable in a role here while expectations are lower for the Jazz. I do think it's difficult to crack the rotation with Isaiah Collier, Keontae George, and of course, Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, guys that are there. But, shooting is proven to be an uphill climb for many when they struggle this badly. But I see this as a low risk, high reward pickup. So now back to Egor Demin, who I saw last night. I went to Provo and I watched the freshman sensation, who I've heard rave reviews and mixed reviews about. I saw him in person. Egor, for those who don't know, is known as a passing wizard. That is his claim to fame. He's a tall, lanky, 6'8", 6'9", not much meat on his bones. He dominated early in the season against inferior competition, drawing rave reviews, and many within our state started to believe, could this be a pipeline from BYU to the Jazz, with visions and hopes of both Egor and AJ DiBonsa going from Provo to Salt Lake, meaning Provo at BYU to the Utah Jazz at the next level. So who knows? It could happen. Egor Demin, though, 11 points per game, 4 rebounds, 6 assists on 42% from the field, 28 from the free throw line, 67 from the free throw line. 28 from the three-point line and 67 from the free throw line. So he began his season, though, with 18 and 11, followed by 20 and 7. And those second numbers are assists. In Big 12 plays, averaged 9.5 points per game and 5.3 assists. So they're certainly solid numbers, but they're nothing that a can't-miss prospect would post. In Big 12 play, he's been overwhelmed at times by the better teams that are more physical. So think of Houston. Houston's known for their defense. They're unbelievably well coached, extremely physical, and extremely athletic. And those rugged teams have caused some poor games for Egor Demin. He only scored 3 points and was a non-factor against Houston. Now, they played Kansas last night, and BYU won in dominant fashion against Kansas, which I don't really think any of us saw coming when the schedule was released. So I can't say too much about how much he was winning the game for them in a win. Sometimes you get a sense of without that guy, they have no chance. That was not the case. But what I did notice is he was always scanning the floor and is the trusted floor general. Nothing runs without Egor Demin. He gets the ball, and they have a very veteran team with capable guards and older players that know how to play and have been primary scorers and facilitators in previous stops. But they know Egor Demin's that guy who's going to get them the right shots. And they got great shots all night. Part of that, though, is Kansas was terrible, absolutely horrible on defense in this game. And so maybe that made him look better in that regard because he was comfortable. There was no pressure put on him. Now, as for his shot, which you may have heard, 28% from three, 67 from the free throw line, not particularly good. And that's one of the swing skills for these tall, lanky prospects. Think of Topic from last year. Who knows? Who knows what it's going to be for him? He shot 88% from the line, and he was a sub 30% three-point shooter. And he's rehabbing from an ACL. Egor Demin's in the same mold. He's tall. He gets the paint. He sprays the ball. It reads things. And he's very good at finding players with passing angles very few see. The swing skill is how well can he hit live ball threes, or is he going to fall into a spot where the best case scenario is similar to that of Josh Giddey, who's been good in his NBA career, but didn't fit the timeline of the Thunder because they needed someone more capable to play alongside SGA, who needed the ball, and Giddey's good with the ball in his hands. I say all that to say this. His shot looks a little less wrist-heavy than it was early in the season and certainly was in Europe. I watched him closely during warmups, and it still does not ring the bell, knock down, step-back threes, tickle the twine, all the things you want. But to me, he looked comfortable and confident enough to step in and shoot it both off the dribble and on the catch. He went 1 of 5 in that game. The one he did hit was a step-back three over Hunter Dickinson. He did look a little timid to attack the rim, often stopping and pulling the ball out and not celebrating the advantages that he had when Kansas inexplicably switched everything and they had an inept defender and Hunter Dickinson on him. That said, he did get a slight advantage and kick the ball out, and they hit a host of 3 balls. So I don't know if this one necessarily causes me doubt about his confidence in terms of going to the rim, or was it easier to find players that were helped off of for no reason in a switching defense? I do doubt, just in terms of the body build at this point, he doesn't look particularly explosive. He's very slender, and he's kind of got the boyish figure as opposed to a man. He's not got the defined body yet. And yes, Cooper Flagg's the same age, and he's not fully formed, but he doesn't lack the physicality. This is more in the vein of Ace Bailey, where he's very thin and slender, and his body hasn't fully come together yet. And it makes me doubt his potency when driving. He does read the ball screen exceptionally well. Kansas tried 2 different defenses. One was have the guy who was defending the screener meet Egor Demin at the level of the screen, and the other was switching. They took advantage of both. Demin hardly seemed phased, but like I said, I have to tell you with transparency that Kansas was abysmal in this game. Came out with no heart, no energy. So I'm not sure it was all that difficult to deal with their defense and make the proper reads, because everyone was open, and you could point and stare for like 2 seconds to who was going to shoot it. And if the roller was open, you'd get a dunk for Kebaketa. And in the corners, it was Trevin Nell and Richie Saunders feasting all night. So it's not the best way to see in person how quickly he processes, but the ball certainly got to places, and the BYU Cougars hit their shots. So Egor Demin was not a clear-cut read of, wow, he's unbelievable. And there wasn't, oh, I'm not sold on him. As of now, I'm thinking a Josh Giddey type is probably the archetype for him, but I believe he might, because of NIL and just comfortability, go back to BYU, and maybe he should go back to school because he seemed the least physically able to handle the big bodies and strength of the Big 12 of some of the prospects I've seen more recently. So that might be music to BYU fans' ears. As for Jazz fans, this is a guy I'd probably steer clear of within the top 10, but I will acknowledge there is potential for a guy who can pass like this at 6'9". There's just potential, but he scares me more than a lot of the other guys I've told you guys about. So thank you guys for making this your first listen all week long and all the time. I really appreciate it. With your next, tune into Locked On NBA Big Board. Raphael and James will be talking about a lot of these same prospects, especially as college basketball heats up, so you know who to watch when madness happens. And also, your favorite podcast now is a newsletter, introducing the Locked On Jazz daily newsletter, one stop for your ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Jazz or Locked On Jazz newsletter. Well, that does it for me. I really appreciate you guys listening all week throughout the All-Star break. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys, and hopefully I'm back with you soon. And if those of you who are missing David, well, he's back next. So thank you guys for listening, and I appreciate your support all the time. And let me know if you have any thoughts. My Twitter is in this picture here on YouTube, at Leif Thulin. I'm happily going to engage with you guys as the draft season heats up. Thank you, guys.